Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call tonight's Abolition Hall Steering Committee, March 2nd, to order. And a couple just things to get started. Darren is not able to join us tonight, and JC is with us through Zoom, along with Renee and Tom. And is there anybody else? Was Ryan Hurley able to join?
I never heard from him. I reached out to him a couple times. So I never
Not as of yet. Okay, he's not here.
I would imagine he can't make it.
All right. For anybody in the public that is going to make a comment tonight, if you could please come up to the microphone and speak clearly so that everybody can hear, that would be appreciated. All right, so the first thing is, do I have an approval of the agenda minutes? Has everybody had a chance to read them? Everybody good? A motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second.
Awesome. Approved. I'm not in the gavel banging.
Okay. That's fine.
Just approved. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And then we're going to move in quickly. We have a lot of items to discuss, so we're going to kind of breeze through a lot of the updates. So the first with Abolition Hall and property status. Craig, do you have some
Yeah, I just have a
updates?
couple things. The tree project is delayed, as everyone would imagine. Yellowstone Landscape has been down there. They have about 3 days left, is what they're telling me, to complete the project. They did go down in between the two storms the week before to see if they could get on there and kind of do anything. They would have done more damage than good. It was so wet. I was down there the other day. It's just mud all over the place. So they did not go in there. So they have about 3 days left. So we're working on that. Hopefully, like with the weather changing next week, they could get in the following week as it dries out a little bit. So that's that update. We had a gutter fall off of one Germantown Pike during the snowstorms that Public Works went in and reinstalled some hangers and put the gutters back up. I have some rough estimates for phase 2 and 3 for the tree projects from John Hosbach. That was really for some of the grants that we're still seeking. But I think I'll let you guys know. Phase 2, which is the invasive removals, he has estimated around $160,000 to $180,000 for that project. And phase 3, which is the reforestation of the site, he has between $95,000 and $120,000. So
Say that again.
there's some big
95 to 1.
95 to 120.
So that would be you're buying the trees and then planting the trees.
Planting them, yes.
And shrubs.
Yeah. And then the first one would be the invasive removals for 160 to 180. So,
Removal of what?
Invasives.
all the invasives on the site.
So that can be done? It's a lot of money, huh?
That's that's when he gave me those numbers.
You're all
I
looking
fell
very
off
calm,
the-
but I'm thinking, do we have that many?
We do not.
Okay.
Do we have that many?
That need to be removed?
I'm assuming he's.
And they're not, I mean, the trees that were at risk have come down. So when you're talking invasives, you're talking like more of the shrub,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Or the ground cover.
It can be trees as well, they're just not dangerous trees.
That's
You only
true.
removed dangerous trees, you didn't remove invasive trees.
No, we did not, yeah.
So there were trees.
Good point. Yeah.
But do we want to remove all the trees?
So that was going to be, so again, if people, just so everybody can hear.
Right.
So what was being said is asking about the trees, like whether it's shrubs or trees. So maybe,
Yeah, we'll have a better understanding. We'll have John back in
John.
here before we move forward, but it's just something to think about as we're moving forward too. Those numbers came out.
and the priority of
I would support that project a lot more if we had a grant for it.
Right.
I think it's worthwhile pursuing a grant for it. I don't know if I'd feel the same if it was coming out of our money. I think if the grant money was there, then I would be more inclined to support that.
Yeah. And that's why I reached out to him for those numbers, because we are looking for different grants. So that's just kind of a, hey, this is what I'm hearing. This is what's on the street, we'll say.
Has he begun to look at different grants himself, or is this all on the township?
He has not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that's in his scope to do?
Yeah, probably not.
We can ask him, no, yeah, I mean, he's not looking
He's a
for that.
contractor, he's not.
Yeah.
Well, he's had a relationship with the township. Like, I mean, he is
Yeah.
the township arborist.
He's our
right?
arborist, yes. Yeah. He could definitely help us find different grants. We do have a PICO grant out there for plantings, but it's $25,000 is the ask. That's the most you can get. So
And that application is in?
that's in, yeah, that one's in. There's a couple others that are in. The Historic Museum Commission has a Keystone Historic Preservation Planning Grant. This would be for Abolition Hall rehabilitation. It's a $25,000 with a 50% match. So it's a $50,000 project, $25,000 grant. And that was submitted today. And Commonwealth Finance Authority, it's a Greenways, Trails, and Recreation for calling it a trailhead at Abolition Hall to have parking for the cross-county trail. That's a $250,000 grant with a 20% match, so $65,000 from the township if we get that. They are recently, one we definitely put in today, the other one, I haven't got confirmation that that went in today or when that's going in, so.
That's great.
Yeah, can you come up?
Sidell Zove, Harts Ridge Road. Comment and a question. Comment is that, just a reminder that the Open Space Maintenance Fund is available to pick up the tab for invasive tree removal and replanting. Just a reminder, and that fund is flush and grows by several $1 million annually. Secondly, a question about the Keystone Planning Grant, that application that went in today. Can you give us more detail on specifically what that grant would be used for? Because I know that one of the requirements is that you not apply for funding for something that's a project that's already underway.
Correct.
So since the planning, some amount of planning is already underway, I'd like to know what is it that this grant would pay for that's not already underway?
It would be, if you want to talk, Claire.
Sure.
Well, hold on, because if this is something that's in your,
I can speak to it a little bit.
yeah,
later.
so we'll-
Okay,
we'll
that's
hold-
fine.
We'll
Yeah.
hold that. Yes.
Comments and questions?
Here, Roy Wilson. My wife Ann and I lived at Abolition Hall for about 45 years. First of all, these numbers that you're talking about, I mean, all this tree work, I mean, I don't really see how that kind of money is really advancing the historical nature of the property as far as saving the buildings and advancing the history of the site, both from the Underground Railroad and the arts perspective. I mean, these are gigantic numbers, whereas in the meantime, the houses are just kind of sitting there rotting away. So it's, in that vein, I talked to John Hosbach at the last Shade Tree Commission meeting. I went early. Committee members weren't there, so I just talked to him directly. But I was really upset about the dawn redwood in the front of the house. It's been chopped to pieces all the way up, 40 feet up in the air. That's a really, I mean, we live with a tree the whole time. That's a very unusual tree. It's a cypress tree. It's a type of cypress tree that loses its needles in the wintertime and brings them back in the summer. So it looks dead as a post a lot of the time. Every year we lived there, we thought, well, I guess it died again, but it always came back. And since the guys were on the site, if you walk by there, it's the tree right in front of the Malsby barn going down the slope. And it's like branches were hacked off all the way up. I gave him pictures. I sent you guys some pictures.
Yeah.
To me, it's like inexcusable that they would do that. I had talked to him about it. He said, well, they weren't told to touch it. Don't know what happened. Pico probably did it. It's nowhere near Pico. The guys did it for some reason. Maybe they thought the branches were dead. But I mean, one problem when you go out on a site like that and you're chopping down trees and it's wintertime, every damn tree on the property looks dead. I mean, deciduous trees always look dead in the wintertime. And cypress trees look like deciduous trees in the wintertime. They look dead. I mean, it seems to me that if you're going to be pruning trees and chopping things down, you ought to at least know if they're alive or not, but you can't tell that in the wintertime. Anyway, that's, as far as the trees go, I'm not very happy about it.
All right, so are there any other updates?
No, unless you want to go to Marple
Yep.
Lane.
Go ahead.
14 Marple Lane, we have the recorded plans back from the county. I will be going to the Board of Supervisors meeting next Thursday and ask them for authorization to go out to bid to sell that property. But we have that underway. That's really all I have as far as the updates on my portion.
Do we have a price on that yet?
A price on the, well, it's not going to be under 200,000. That's what it appraised at, so we can't sell it for less than that. Hopefully we got a lot more.
Yeah. We're going to need a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. Claire's report and Renee?
Yes. Hold on, sorry.
Thank you. I'm Claire Donato from Mark Thompson Associates, here to speak a little bit to the conditions assessment and provide an update. So we'd like to use our update tonight to talk about the reuse of the buildings, their rehabilitation, and planning for implementation, because I think this gives context to putting our recommendations into format with budgets and looking ahead to kind of roadmap forward. The recommendations for the condition assessment include repair and other treatment of building fabric based on supporting data. And this data includes our review of prior documents and reports, assessment of existing conditions, review of the property's periods of significance, evaluating opportunities for sustainable design and improved energy efficiency, and a preliminary review of building code, life safety, and accessibility. In addition to this information, an important part of what informs our recommendations and a prioritized plan for implementation is the overall reuse strategy. The framework for the reuse of the buildings, and there shouldn't be any big surprises here, but for Malsby Barn and Abolition Hall, the plan is for flexible community program, event, and interpretive spaces. For the first floor of Hovenden Hall, for visitor services, site support, and general administrative uses, and for the second floor of Hovenden Hall, possibly, depending on township considerations, a caretaker residence. It's important to reflect back that the course and tract is a designated property. To be eligible for public funding, the recommendations for reuse of the property must be consistent with the Secretary of Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. Properties are designated based on age, integrity, extent of original fabric, and their association with American history, culture, architecture, or archaeology. In this case, and according to the 1971 nomination statement, the course and tract is recognized for the events that happened at the property and the lives of the people that lived there. The nomination recognizes American history, political and social movements, art and sculpture, and urban planning. Under the Secretary of Interior standards, there are 4 treatment standards: preservation, rehabilitation, restoration, and reconstruction. The rehabilitation standard is the most widely used standard as it allows buildings to be adapted for new uses. This standard supports the adaptations required for the desired community programming at Course and Track while providing guidelines for preserving materials and features that are important to the building's overall historic character. Some of you may be familiar with these standards, but we just want to take a few minutes to run through some of the highlights of what the rehabilitation standard means and how it relates to this property and moving forward. While some of the other standards focus more intently on preserving the building as a moment in time or as a museum depicting an earlier use, generally the goal of the rehabilitation standard is to activate and make historic buildings usable for the community now and for future generations. Rehabilitation allows for compatible uses through repair, alterations, and additions while preserving portions or features which convey its historical, cultural, or architectural values. To an extent feasible and practical, the rehabilitation plan for this property will recommend retaining features of the key periods of significance, providing the opportunity to interpret the buildings and site at different stages and as a continuum over its entire history. Next slide. We have a few photos of the interiors of the buildings. These are some of the example images of some of the primary spaces of both Abolition Hall and Malsby Barn. Under the rehabilitation standard, a property shall be used for its intended historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. Our findings indicate that the buildings are inherently suitable for the planned reuse and can support the goals for the property while maintaining its historic significance. Recommendations which are consistent with the guidelines will emphasize the retention of historic fabric where it remains extant, replacement in kind where appropriate, allow for sensitive alterations, and when needed, compatible additions. And next slide shows some interior spaces of Hovenden Hall. And while the buildings have the expected construction issues for their age and history, including renovations and changes over time, the goals expressed for their reuse are definitely achievable. And we will further demonstrate this and support this approach by identifying the areas of the buildings that have the most flexibility versus areas of restoration and preservation. It will outline issues that require code upgrades for a change of use from residential to institutional use, and identify opportunities for improving materials and energy efficiency to ensure resiliency, longevity, and sustainability. So this is helpful context as we begin, as I said, to put this towards a kind of roadmap forward and an implementation plan. The comprehensive implementation for the recommended site and building repairs will require a phased plan with interim steps. And next slide. We've previously discussed in this setting a startup plan, which is currently underway, which includes public works and repairs and services that they can undertake, and the schedule for that is just simply weather dependent at this point. The township can also make use of existing vendor services for things like exterminator, environmental monitoring, fire alarm. And then there would also be, as part of the startup plan, installation of temporary facilities and undertaking small construction projects to support interim programming and event use. The next phase would be focused on getting safe access, vehicle access, with limited improvements for on-site parking. It would also include exterior and envelope repairs based on assessment report priorities, and these would be budgeted by obtaining selective contractor proposals that we can solicit or assist the township with soliciting. And then potential improvements related to a resident caretaker and renovating the spaces to be used as an apartment. That moves towards the more capital-intensive phases of implementing a vision for reuse and rehabilitation. As funds become available, work can proceed with implementation of grant-funded and more capital-intensive rehabilitation projects. And these include infrastructure improvements related to accessibility and occupancy, and structural and building improvements for the chains of use and occupancy, including items that we've identified in the assessment report that need to be addressed but can be deferred until funding is available. And I think that's a good segue to what is the next phase of planning. So while this is focused more on identifying the work that needs to be done in this series of phases and rough order of magnitude budgets for each of those steps along the roadmap, the next phase of planning would be a more specific schematic design, and taking that schematic design so that you have the materials to continue to apply for grants and for both the additional engineering and other services needed, and then finally capital for construction. So.
Thank you, Claire. I mean, I think that is a great summary and recap of like why we know how we got here, but what to do with the next steps, you know, great framework for what we are supposed to then kind of help facilitate for the next part. Are there any questions or comments about it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But it's a great segue into the next part, which are our discussion topics. So we're shifting from lots of updates that we've been having over the past several months to like really having conversations about how to make all this happen and really have activities and programming and have it grow into what we'd really like to see happen. The first on the discussion topic is governance and fundraising. From our last public meeting, there was conversation about a 501c3 and ways to help facilitate the governance of this. Right now we have a steering committee, you know, how to help build upon that and what is the best way to have that happen. So I thought we could just open it up for discussion on what people think, pros and cons. We talked about the township. Maybe Craig, if you have any updates from what you've learned from the solicitor's office about the township, like what needs to happen, what that might look like, to give a little scope.
Yeah, I reached out to the solicitor's office, asked about, you know, forming a 501c3. We would have to have the bylaws and articles of incorporation. We need a name, of course. It would be roughly 3 to 6 months. We have to provide a corporate purpose. We have to put board members on the 501c3. So we'd have to create another board with board members, and that could be selected by whoever and have as many as you want, I guess. And then just the advertising and getting everything together on that. So,
When you say 3 to 6 months, that means the time it takes to have all the legal processes happen.
Go through,
to establish
yes.
that.
And once we submit it to the state, it would be 3 to 6 months from there is what they're telling me.
To get approval for it.
Yeah.
The 501c3 status
501c3.
takes, the company is created like in days, and then the 501c3 status takes 3 to 6 months, I think, to get approved.
Okay. So, you know, a lot of moving parts there. So it's an option. It's an option.
And
So-
like that's, yeah, go ahead.
Why don't we start with the pros? The pros to having a 501c3 is it creates a tax-deductible, single-purpose entity with clarity for donors. That people know who they're giving to, they know what the money's being used for, and it provides tax deductible status. Second pro that I see is it avoids public bidding because a 501c3 is an independent enterprise and it can solicit contractor bids without the rigor and the increased cost that a township has under the procurement code. Anyone have any other pros that they see that jump out to them?
It increases your options for grant.
Yeah.
Grants. Yeah, it's a great one.
Yep.
Who would be responsible in creating the bylaws if we were to pursue this?
Solicitor.
Okay.
With substantive input. So typically bylaws are pretty stock. You pull them off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And then they evolve over time as the organization.
It's established.
Like the Highlands, we've updated our bylaws from time to time. That's very typical, where you kind of, your articles of incorporation, your bylaws are very standard in the beginning. And then you see how you work and what you need to change and tweak to make it work better.
Okay. And how would the members be selected? Like you were saying, whoever would.
So the initial board is created by the people or person that forms the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an initial board of directors, which is created when the articles are filed.
Right.
And then over time it evolves through just the normal process of administering the organization.
Okay. So the township would be selecting.
I would imagine the Board of Supervisors would be
Okay.
selecting that. I would imagine.
Does anyone else see any pros that we haven't said so far?
I like the idea of having the fundraising be going clearly to the Abolition Hall entity.
Yeah.
You know, so it is separate from the township and just, it looks cleaner.
Donors appreciate knowing exactly where their money is
Yeah.
going, so that is, I think that would help with fundraising.
Mhm.
And obviously, the grants is a huge one.
Yeah.
What are the other, I guess we can go into the cons or everything, because I also want to talk about other options too. Do you mind talking? Yeah.
In addition to, you said single purpose for tax deduction, but also having a single focus for administering this property. The township has many things in its portfolio that it needs to focus on, but this group, their sole purpose would be to be the stewards and caretakers and fundraisers for this property. So it has that single sole purpose as well.
So Claire, while you're on that, being that the group would be tasked to be the stewards, like that sounds like a big task with are these typically in your experience like paid positions?
You've talked about how it can evolve and grow. It doesn't need to have a paid position initially, and if the township is a major stakeholder, a lot of the administrative work can be supported by the township. Over time, yes, it would be ideal, and a lot of the nonprofits that we work with, and I'm sure you know, are able to raise funds to bring on either part-time or full-time administrative support, and then that grows as the institution grows into more dedicated executive director and on from there.
Claire, you've done a lot of historic renovations, revitalizations. Is the 501c3 a commonly used tool?
Absolutely, yeah. We have, all of our historic sites are either a public entity or a nonprofit.
And then the other pro is it separates it from the township financially, right? And I think there's a negative to that too, right? But I think that's I can put that in the pro column that the public fisc is protected by having the 501c3 responsible for the project.
Yeah, say more on that, like as far as
So,
burden.
yeah, when I talk about the public fisc, the township has certain costs that are recurring every year. Police, fire, all the stuff. And the Board of Supervisors works really hard to balance the budget without raising taxes. And then this project came along, and out of necessity, it sort of fell into the township's lap. And so if it was to be separated from the township administering it to a 501c3, then the township would no longer be responsible for it. So the money that the township has for infrastructure and parks and all the other stuff wouldn't be burdened by this project. So I see that as a pro. Yes.
Sidelzo. I think one of the significant advantages to creating a 501c3 is that you could have a board of directors or trustees or whatever you call them that included people with deep expertise in historic preservation, in history, history of the Underground Railroad, art historians, preservationists, and I think that would bring added credibility and gravitas to the fundraising effort.
Thank you.
I agree. One thing that we have to remember too is this project was made possible by a very generous donation from the Carabots Foundation, which, as part of that, we have an obligation, which is to program the property for learning, education of students, right? And so we have to always, there's almost like two phases. It's like restoring the property has this one, group of skills that are needed, but then programming it, and we can't lose sight of that.
Deborah Harris. I was just going to say a 501 group could be more like the Friends of Hope Lodge. We are small. We handle programming and events and some of the more like the gardens and such, but we don't maintain the historic structure. That's more fundraising than we can do. So you could have an organization that handles programming and that public outreach and maintaining maybe the museum and that sort of thing. Just saying, you could think different ways about what this organization would do. It doesn't necessarily have to take on the whole thing, though nice if it could. Or like it doesn't have to take on the grounds. That extra 10 acres doesn't have to necessarily be part of it. They could just focus on the historic part. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. We could make it what we want it to be.
Thank you.
That's a great point.
By establishing an entity for this property, it also doesn't preclude partnerships and collaborations with other nonprofits who can come to the property to deliver programming and education. So you're right. I mean, it doesn't have to do it all. And those relationships with other like-minded nonprofits could go a long way to accomplish the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
JC has her hand up, so.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, JC.
I just wanted to chime in. I like everything that everybody said about a 501c3. I also think people feel more comfortable giving donations to a 501c3 as opposed to just giving a donation to the township, and they feel more comfortable and secure about that. The other option is if we were to, say we something changed and we had a partner down the road or a group of partners and we were to shift anything, we would have the ability to place a timeline on the 501c3 and like a sunsetting option that it could end at a certain point in time if we needed it to.
Thanks, JC.
And one other thought, excuse me, Roy, is that a lot of 501c3s benefit because private foundations, which there are a lot of around here, have to spin off a certain amount every year. Like, a lot of these privately held family foundations have to donate. They have to do it as part of their IRS exempt status, which could benefit a 501c3. They have to give money every year. Like William Penn has to spin off, it's like $100 million a year they have to spin off. So that's a benefit.
Roy Wilson, I just would echo what you said. When I was in the board member of the Historical Society over on Chemical Road, the problem with the facility was the buildings. We were always just fixing buildings. That's all we ever did. I guess my question when I come up here, right now the township is fixing the buildings at their expense with some hope of recouping it, I guess, from, sale of Marple Lane and whatnot. Right now, you guys take care of the facility for the art group over there. You're in charge of the building, and they use it.
Correct.
I mean, at this point, it seems to me like that would be a much better way to go, rather than taking over that whole building, because I think you're just going to drown taking care of the buildings, and you'll never do anything. I think you need people involved in just doing something, and then the township being the steward of the buildings, at least for a period of time.
You mean like having a caretaker?
Well, the township taking care of the expense of roofing it and maybe even heating and whatnot. It was surprising to me when I went to a couple of board meetings for the Arts Center, that I asked about their utility costs and all those things. They didn't know anything about any of those costs. They had no idea what it cost because you guys paid for all of it, which was a bad sign in my feeling, because they didn't really know what anything cost, and they were going to take over this whole facility with no real conception of what costs would be. But I think if, for the meantime, the township could continue sort of seeing the buildings as their responsibility until something got going, that would be much better than setting up a 4-3. I'm not sure of the 501c. I'm not sure if Historical Society was that or not, but it probably was. I guess it was nonprofit. But they have nothing in common. Taking care of buildings, and I did all that for the whole time we lived there, and running programming, which I also did. They're like completely different. And all the money goes to the building, and then you never actually do anything.
Thank you. Craig, I have a question. If the township does create a 501, does that affect the use of the open space funds for maintenance at all in any way?
No, it shouldn't.
It doesn't anywhere else.
Yeah.
Whitemarsh Foundation, Highlands,
Same.
it's all.
It's all under the same.
And I think, Roy, I think that's a great point. I think short term, that probably is the way it would have to go, because, aside from major grant writing, if you're writing for major restoration grants and planning grants, I think that's the caveat. But as a fiscal hawk, we have to remember how this project started. The township put up money to buy land, which has a very low annual maintenance cost, for which there's dedicated endowment for in the open space fund. They did not sign up to own and maintain and restore these buildings. And I think we have to be conscientious of that too. I think the township stepped up in a huge way, and I think we can use it as a crutch, but we can't lean on it too hard. I think we have to try to stand on our own. Go ahead. Come on up.
I agree with you 100%, but if I could just say that the township really created this by creating an acceptance of an art center to run these buildings when it was obvious to me they couldn't do it. So the township sort of took this baby on, and they've got to carry it for a while. Maybe they took it on with good intentions, but they set up this structure where, they bought the part which didn't require any work, and they stuck the art center with the part that required all the work, plus all the programming. And it's just not realistic. It wasn't realistic then. and you weren't there. But I mean, it wasn't realistic. It was a great solution to, acquiring your property because that's what you want to do. But now you've got it, the township has to play along with it for a while because they created the beast. They're going to have to feed it until it's ready to go.
I think we ought to digress from that. All right.
So going into why we wouldn't consider this.
Are there any
other
cons?
options? Go ahead.
Cons. Additional administrative burden, tax returns, bookkeeping. What do you see?
It would need to be, someone would need to be designated for that. Forming a board doesn't necessarily mean that, that those are volunteers and not necessarily going to be contributing in that way. So, when Claire was saying, obviously, sometimes there is a person that has to be in, a paid position, whether it be something where there's a caretaker living on site and they're paying reduced rent and caring for administrative services.
Programming, my experience with the Highlands Board is that programming transcends the board because you create a board of highly skilled professionals that check different matrices, whether it's finance or legal or historic, and the programming is so much work that the people who are giving their time are like, listen, I can come here and fix this and advise on this, but pulling together groups and events, it's a lot of work. So I think Dana's right on.
I think that's what would have to be defined is, obviously because of the Carabas donation, that is a priority of the programming. So are we designating a person that's a paid position to do that? Or does Parks and Rec have the kind of bandwidth to just, like they do with Cedar Grove, is this just another site where they're doing Parks and Rec programming and this is another site where things are being held? Tom Blomstrom's, creating a Juneteenth celebration. Will that happen at Abolition Hall, or do they have the staffing for that, or is this a totally new entity?
I think he just solved the problem. Let's just make Tom in charge of all the programming.
It's just a thought. I don't know.
I'm just teasing you, Tom.
He knows you're on the call, Tom. He knows.
All right, what other cons do we see to a 501c3? Does anyone else see any other drawbacks?
No, I think we hit the main ones.
And what are the alternatives to doing this?
I see one drawback that I see is it might remove the urgency and the diligence of search for a compatible group to come in and operate the property.
Well, could that be one of the
missions of the 501c3?
missions, or what did you say, the articles, bylaws, that would be a bylaw, that's one of the things that has to happen?
It could be an objective, for sure.
An objective.
Yeah. Part of it being to search for someone or a group that could come in here and do it right.
Are you talking paid people again?
No, I have to believe that there's a group out there that would just love to call this place home and that would honor it. And
like an already established historical society or preservation group that needs a home base. Yeah.
Totally.
I agree.
I was talking with Darren, and he was talking about he knew some local groups that might have interest. I think we should keep exploring that too.
Any other comments or thoughts?
How are we making that decision?
That's my next question.
We
make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Take a vote.
Are there other things that need to be vetted, or is?
As we sit here today, the pros seem to outweigh the cons. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Do you guys agree?
Would you say?
That the pros outweigh the cons? Yes?
I feel like it's a natural next step that doesn't have to be the permanent next step. You know, as JC already shared about the opportunity
Time
to
limit.
add a sunset timeframe gives the intention from the beginning that this is again phased, that it doesn't have to be this is what it is, period, the end. And as Claire was saying, like we need to phase it now.
I would make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to establish a 501c3 for Abolition Hall with a board of directors to be picked by the Board of Supervisors and the Carabots Foundation, and a proviso that allows the 501c3 to be terminated in the event that another steward for the property is identified and engaged, something like that. That would be the sunset clause that I would think of.
Now, the Board of Supervisors for the 501, are they now going to take over the fundraising? They're going to be responsible for getting all the donations that are needed, or are they going to do the programming?
So
that would be the board that is established.
But what
You
are we
mean the board that's
establishing the board
established?
for the
You're asking,
501?
like, what would their responsibility
Right.
be? So that would be
I think
one
it
of
would-
the tasks.
Yeah, it would definitely be a joint effort where the township would be promoting it, right? And that would be, they would set up a bank account and that would just be the conduit for the fundraising. I think Claire would probably work with grant writing and such.
Is there anybody else?
I was going to say that you don't need to choose. There are certain grants that are only available to public entities, and there are other grants that are available to nonprofits. So you want to maximize that. So I think the township can continue to seek grants for the property, and the nonprofit could as well.
Yeah. And
Okay, so the 501 board would be looking for grants. And
Yeah.
the township would continue. Do we have somebody on the township that does nothing but sit and write grants for all the programs?
No.
Who does it?
Engineering does.
Engineering does most of them. Tom's group, the administration, it's split between.
Gotcha.
Tom and
That-
Krista?
That's huge.
And when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about Hope Lodge and I'm thinking about the Highlands. Hope Lodge is still operating the property which the Commonwealth owns.
PHMC owns it.
And the Highlands started out operating a property that the Commonwealth owned. Now the Highlands owns it. This would be very similar. It would be Abolition Hall Historical Society or something close, which would operate the property, which would be owned by the township until such time as either it can stand on its own or another organization comes in that the township feels is deserving of the fee to the buildings.
And we need to continue to look for that
Correct.
group to do that. So there's a lot of tasks on that board.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my question. You know,
Yep.
how, is that all the responsibility of the new board on the 501c, or do we break that down? Or do we just start? Let's get the 501c in place, get a board,
I think
and then we can diverse.
you get it set up, you find a board, and then it would be very close coordination for a while until they're soaring. You kind of like teach them how to ride a bike and then let them go. You know, I would think that then it will kind of do
Run itself.
its thing.
As far as the money, but how about all the programming? They're going to be responsible for the programming?
I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, that also would look into other organizations to collaborate
To
with.
partner
so that-
with.
Yeah, it has to be a
Yeah,
partnership. They
you-
can't take it on themselves.
Like,
Too much.
so just to speak plainly, this was a slavery abolition site, right? It's a historic background is that gentleman and this woman, and like that's what it is. So we would look to Philadelphia, and we'd look to some nonprofits down there, and we'd look to other historical organizations and look to partner for events and make the space available. And, maybe someone comes out and just is really taken with it, and they have the bandwidth and the ability, and we get
They
lucky.
seem like a good fit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The board doesn't have to do everything. It has to network and be able to bring people to the table to help raise money and deliver programs. And there's so many nonprofits in Philadelphia that have similar missions and goals that I think they'd be very excited about being able to do programming here.
And frankly, the William Penn Foundation has made a huge push. They used to be all about natural lands and waterways. They have made a huge push towards people, and I think that this would be a project that would align really well with where they are right now as an organization.
All right, well, what I hear is then that we're wanting to make a motion to recommend the 501 to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Yes. We
You
need their
phrased it so
approval.
nicely. Would you like to repeat that?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the Board of Supervisors consider setting up a 501c3 to operate Abolition Hall and to continue this development of the project as a whole, which includes the programming consistent with the Carabots gift, and that the Board of Supervisors and the Carabots Foundation appoint a board and file the paperwork with the state and the IRS to get accredited, and that the bylaws have a provision that says if another suitable group is identified, that this can be shut down, i.e. a sunset clause.
I second that. Yep. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Motion carries. Well done. The next topic for discussion is website versus township web page. I don't think Ryan is here. Craig, do you have any?
Somebody's on there. Who's on the bottom?
That's Rob, our
That's Rob. He
tech.
was at the MCAB meeting. I don't know. He provided the memo that was in their packet. I think basically the bottom line was they were recommending doing a whole new website and not just a web page on our website. So again, we have to look at who's going to manage
I was
that,
going to
who's
say
going to
that
set
would be
that up.
ideal, but yeah, who would maintain that website? I mean, to start out, since, I mean, I was on the township webpage or website before I came in, and it doesn't directly link. I mean, you can type in Abolition Hall and do a search on there, and you can find things, but under the community tab on the website, you can drop down and there's all different things listed. Dixon Preserve has its own site, basically its own dedicated page. If there was something like that, because there's nothing really directly linked to Abolition Hall, I think that would be a good start, where it has photos and a blurb about the history, and updates can be on the township, like easy access.
We could clean up the website to have
Because I'm also
their own.
concerned about the cost of having a whole website right now. Like, I mean, I think it can be phased.
Well, what about donations, though? And if it's a 501c3, it probably should be autonomous from the township. That's part of this whole 501c3.
Can we do
It
it
should be.
gradually? Like, I don't know what the cost is to get a whole website going.
I don't know. They had recommendations
I mean,
of
it
things
it's
that I
like
don't remember.
$600 a year, but I mean, it's more, I think it's wouldn't be a lot to start it up. It's just who's going to maintain
Yeah.
it, because there's lots of websites that just sit there and nothing happens to them because it's started and nobody's maintaining
And
it.
then that doesn't hurt. You want the links to work. You want,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
to be
any
updated
social
regularly, and I
connection,
agree, there needs to be a
social
link on the website for the donations specifically, and if someone's on the township webpage, they're really like, well, what's the difference? This is just donating money to the township, but if there's a direct link on its own page, or a link, I don't know.
Is an outside vendor that does the website stuff? Is he an employee of the township or an outside vendor?
No, well, to set up the website, it was Civic Plus, and they, I guess, oversee the website, but we do all the updates on it.
Yeah, you do the updates,
Yeah.
which I think someone from the board would do. We'd, find someone with some tech background, but one of the beauties of nonprofits is you get to go to everyone that you do business with and say, hey, I'm part of a nonprofit. Can you lend your expertise? Right? We need a website. That is the beauty of a nonprofit, is you get to unabashedly ask people for money and donation of time and talent, because it benefits not you, but it benefits something that's worthy. And so, I think that's something that, we look at. We start to, once this thing gets set up, in the short term, maybe just do a page if you want to, otherwise do a bare bones website.
So we could clean up our website for their page for Abolition Hall, but, and then once the 501c3, if we're going that route and the 501c3 is formed, then that's when we start looking at.
Yeah.
But you're looking at
full-
it about a year.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's better to, to get something up right away that's, a clearer path on the wet townships, and then it can be updated on there. We're in the process, it can be small updates incrementally. We're forming a 501c3, we're selecting board members now, and eventually it'll have their own website established.
What do we want to call it?
You can come up.
What do you want to call that? 501?
Yeah.
I agree with Craig's approach, and it could be, first of all, the Board of Supervisors has to endorse and approve moving forward the creation of the 501c3.
Yeah.
And it's going to take several months to even write bylaws and collaborate with the Carabats people and all that. So I'd say it's minimum of 6 months till we even file. My guess is till we're ready to even file with the state and the IRS. So in the interim, I think creating a easy pathway for public access on the existing website, because right now the Abolition Hall page is the committee page. It's under government committees and commissions and boards, and then the Abolition Hall Committee. That's how you get to it. It's not, there's no direct.
It should be under Parks and Rec or something.
Well,
There's a parks section. That's what I was saying. Like, the Dixon Preserve has its own.
Yeah.
right.
From
From the initial drop-down menus, there should be an easy way to get to the Abolition Hall page. And
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's just put it as the first page. Craig, when you go to whitemarsh.gov,
Just throw that on there?
boom.
Yep.
I'll try that.
Totally. Thank you, Dana. And I think also if there's a way to talk to, actually, if someone, would you mind talking, or someone from the group here connecting with the MCAB board to talk about that detail and have like a little subgroup to work on that?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
You don't want me with technology.
Because that would be helpful to, like, even on the homepage of the township website, to have even a link, donate Abolition Hall, that type of thing
Right.
right there. And then that takes you also to the page as well as to just donating.
Yes.
Those kind of details. That would be awesome, Dana.
Rob has his hand up. Rob, you have something to add here?
Yes. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Okay. I'm also the staff liaison to the Media Communications Advisory Board. Unfortunately, Chair Ryan Hurley is not able to make it. It was discussed in terms of options for who would create the website. There are high-end options, so you can have somebody, you can have actually somebody do it. You can also do it yourself, like Wix or Squarespace, for like a relatively low cost. MCAB also suggested during that meeting on, what was it, late January, something like that, their last meeting, that they even floated the idea of having a local high school student do it. So the question was, who gets to build the website? So that was discussed, and I just wanted to mention that there are options. So something to help the committee along.
I like the high school kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're smarter.
I mean, there's senior projects like that where they have, you know, to fulfill community service hours.
Yeah. Let's get a high school
Good
kid.
idea. How do we get them? Anybody
Talk
got
to
high school
PW.
kids?
I have a high school kid.
Oh. You volunteering again? Are they involved in any of the programs at the high school that?
A lot.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I would nominate my son, but he's too involved. But someone else at PW, I'd be happy to talk to someone there and see if anyone would be a good fit for that.
Does anyone have any suggestions on names? Could I throw a few out there that have been?
Are we going back to?
This is his wheelhouse.
Yeah, part of the recommendations, right?
Go ahead.
So you've got Abolition Hall Historical Society. You've got Abolition Hall Arts and Learning Center, or something like that. Abolition Hall Arts and Learning.
Is it arts? I thought we kind of got rid of the arts.
Abolition Hall.
No, you can't get rid of the arts. That's part of the history.
Correct.
Okay.
Arts and Education. Abolition Hall Arts and Education Center.
Mm-hmm. So doesn't.
Just think we need to be mindful of the grant agreement that the township signed with the Karabots Foundation, which did have some naming concerns and issues. Just need to think about that.
Yes, and I think, if I recall, I think that was on the building,
on the buildings and inside the buildings,
Yeah.
outside and in, but just.
We can't put them on the 501c3 because then we can't ask the foundation for more money because the names
Right.
would be
I'm
the
just
same.
suggesting it might be premature to discuss names before discussing the broader issue with the Karabots family.
It's good to just get some ideas.
Yeah, you have to
rolling
have,
around.
you can't
Yeah.
file the paperwork until you have a name,
Correct. Yep.
right?
And they would be part of
Yeah.
forming all the bylaws.
And I like the idea of just throwing some names out there because then, otherwise, you never know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's good.
Abolition Hall History Center.
Ooh, I like that one.
I like that one too.
The History Center,
Kind of hits all the,
It does.
brings everything in with it.
and it's Hemingway, it's short.
And it's short.
Okay.
Abolition Hall History Center. I like that.
AHHC, that's what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
I was just checking the initials too, yeah.
What are the initials?
You gotta be careful, right?
Yeah, well, you do. I mean, it's okay with me, but.
I like that.
AHHC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all
It's
right.
not something else.
AHHC, that's good.
Every group I ever dealt with around here always just went by their initials. So it's like, that's more important than what it actually says.
Good point.
Yeah, because I always think of it as Abolition Hall. It always comes as Abolition Hall.
Absolutely.
There is, you probably already know this, you may not. There are, whenever you look, if you look up Abolition Hall, you're going to find Abolition Hall isn't,
Yeah,
this
there's a
is
lot of
not
them.
the site in the world. There's a major one, I think it's in Massachusetts, is it, whatever. I mean, so you have to be conscious of the fact you want to discriminate this site from other sites which also call themselves some
So what else?
variation of Abolition Hall.
Well, Roy and I were talking about this. If we designate like Pennsylvania as somewhere in the name, because if you just Google Abolition Hall, like a bunch of them come up in other states.
I would say Whitemarsh. That would be.
Yeah.
All right, so you do Abolition Hall History Center of Pennsylvania,
Or of Whitemarsh.
of Whitemarsh, of Pennsylvania,
In
Plymouth Meeting,
Whitemarsh, in Whitemarsh.
Montgomery County,
It's getting longer now.
there's a Whitemarsh in Maryland.
There is, yeah.
Did you get that all down?
Short and sweet. They'll find us. We're going to make enough noise that it will be found.
I love it.
How's that?
Love it. No, but it is good. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
If you want to name it the Edmund Shin History Center, you can. I want to.
There's a price for that.
Yeah, I'm sure
There's the first 100,000 right there.
Yeah, right. I mean, his name's going to be on it. More than 100.
small letters underneath. Okay, so Dana, thank you for talking with MCAB. I'm not sure, I think they're in every other month board
Yes.
meeting.
Next meeting is, well, it's supposed to be Memorial Day. It's June, the following Monday.
Okay.
March 23rd.
Oh, March 23rd. Oh,
Perfect. I was
Much
going to say
better.
maybe touching base with Ryan, who's the chair before, but if it's the 23rd, is that something you can do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one crazy idea I'd like to toss out there. I think it'd be cool if we could get a group of high school kids to participate in some way as like junior board members, that like they could kind of go through this experience and like maybe it would be something that people like. Maybe we could bribe them with donuts and food that like we could get, you know, as kids come up through the high school, they're like, hey, this was actually really cool. We took part in this. We created some programs. We
Are
participated.
there any capstone projects for
Bingo.
universities that need to do, you know, that are MBA programs or things? Because this whole process is kind of in that too.
Yeah.
I can ask. I have a couple.
At PW, there's a Black Culture Club. They just did a whole program for Black History Month and did like an inequality walk and things like that. So they could do their existing programming at Abolition Hall.
Well, and I'm sure
Just
if
no
they-
walks.
Yeah, if they have connections with
We'll
universities.
do line
too,
dancing.
right?
No,
So
no
like,
walks.
uh,
That just doesn't, they always
You know,
go
if they're
south.
going on from high school into that type of
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
program,
Mhm.
how can we help you with that project?
Well, how about like through the history department at different schools?
So this is.
We've got
this is-
GA.
So Tom is on this call.
Tom has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yes,
Good.
hand raised. Yeah.
Hey, Tom.
His lips are moving and we're not getting anything.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Now we can.
Hi, everyone. I was just thinking, in having had that experience with the high school students on a board and representing and that kind of thing, junior, you know, board member kind of thing. What I think's important, because if you get a very good or two very good high school students, they can go be the leaders that you want with their particular groups. So I think a good way to look at it is more of it being a prestigious thing, and having students like apply. And this would be something that then in turn they would use on their college applications and be something year after year that I'm going after the Abolition Hall board position kind of thing.
That's a great idea.
Because I think in that case, you end up getting someone who is sincere, diligent, organized, a leader, versus, hey, this kid likes history a little bit, and you just, I think your talent pool and what you're trying to achieve, just because I've seen it over the many years when we happen to get a really strong intern or representative from the high school groups, it reflects. And all of a sudden, come Township Day, I'm amazed and impressed by, the 18-year-old male or female student who is leading these 45 kids. They got signed up to be out there that day with our staff, and it's just really impressive. And it's something where we look to get someone from like the National Honor Society or that kind of thing, and it can be like a prestige kind of thing. So I would just say that when that comes about and is getting framed in the bylaws, and that group is working to establish programs and connections and stuff, I would think that that's a good way to posture that.
Love it.
Awesome.
Tom,
Thanks,
you
Tom.
have applications that you've used before, like questions kind of already listed on the application?
We can, something can be created quickly enough. I don't personally have one. I was thinking of a different board in a different place, but we've had interns come out that have, done work for us throughout the years, and we interview them and for their leadership skills in this. I would actually look at this as even a much more premium type of opportunity. It's one thing and I'm not trying to knock the Park and Rec department, but it's one thing to, hey, I volunteered for the town Park and Rec department. It's another thing to say I was selected to serve as a junior member of the Abolition Hall History Center board, and it's a very selective process, and suddenly they're getting a recommendation on letterhead from that 501c3 group, and it's a more powerful thing. That's all.
I don't know, but that Tom, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome advice. And as we're sitting here thinking, we have the open space money, right? And I think as we look at infrastructure like parking and things like that, I think that's something that an application to the open space committee is totally appropriate, right? Mm-hmm. Like the entrance is very narrow, right? Pick up one of those piers and slide it, give us one way in and one way out, and we'll figure out some parking down the road. And then this money from Marple Lane, I think it would be really nice if maybe we make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that gets earmarked for projects, so that we can get the building at least pretty good. And then when this 501c3 is created, this is such a great cause that going to, Penn and Temple and Drexel and be like, hey, we started a 501c3 for Abolition Hall. As far as the timing of this and the cause, it's going to resonate. And if it doesn't, shame on you for it not. So I think that, this is something that, I think the money from Marple Inc. could go a long way to getting this pretty good.
Isn't it already earmarked to go to the bank account? Didn't we discuss that the last time?
Yeah, the bank account is set up.
And isn't it designated that when Marple gets sold, that money goes into our bank account? You spelt my name right?
I did, yeah. Give me your social security number again.
No problem. I'll text it. So that's already done.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
That's set up. We're working with the community pass that we have on the website that does the programs and events. If you sign up for it, they'll have another layer on that for, Abolition Hall History Center. So you can hit that as a donation.
At Whitemarsh.
Yeah, at Whitemarsh, yeah.
And just as a looking forward, I would really like the next time we meet to have some planning done on parking, because I think that's going,
crucial.
lighting and parking.
Well, yeah, I can get you that was the grant application for, or that's the one they're working on for the greenways, trails and recreation. It's a trailhead parking, but we're going to use it for both Abolition Hall and the trailhead, and there's about 24 parking spaces there.
Is there like a waiver of retroactivity that we could do the work and then if the grant comes in, or?
No, not with that.
This is the $65,000 one?
This is the 250, and then the match is 65,000.
Excuse me, Craig,
So it's about 310,000.
wasn't the trailhead going to be on the Hogg property, or am I misremembering?
That's what he's talking about, I think.
But not at Abolition Hall, at Hogg. Okay, thank you. Just want to clarify.
Oh, that's cool.
It's part of the cross-county trail.
And so would it loop around to Abolition Hall?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right, so, but that's not happening tomorrow. So in the meantime, though, we're kind of like jumping around a little bit. So I want to kind of backtrack to, because we're talking parking, I wanted to follow up about the parking conversation with the property business that is a few doors down on Germantown. Is that conversation underway?
It is not.
Okay.
So we have to work on that.
Is there anybody that can help with that? I don't know that person, but I'm happy to try calling.
Yeah. Once I have information on who that is.
Okay.
Judge Lucan's going to go and
Knock on the door.
twist his arm.
No problem. I like meeting new people. Give me name and number, I'll go knock. I just can't ask for money.
That's the dream back there, to have that more established by the Hogg property, but that definitely is going to take a little time. But in the meantime, there is existing space. It would just mean having a safe path that goes from that parking over to the property.
Hall, yes. Correct.
And lighting.
And lighting, all of that, insurance, all of those safety features. The other part, we got talking about the high school student liaison person in the context of helping with the website design. So is that something, Tom, do you have a connect with people at the high school?
He's talking again.
He didn't make himself on mute.
I see his lips moving.
Because that may help with you talking, like maybe it's like a meeting with the meeting, maybe that connection at the high school could.
Yeah, I ironically, and I defer to Rob and to although it sounds wonderful to say, hey, I want to have a high school kid design a website. I would defer. I'm not Mr. Technology, but I would defer to Rob and MCAB on that if Dana's having conversations with them, specifically on a high school student designs it, and the issue there that would be my concerns is suddenly it's its own website that exists for a 501c3. The 501c3 folks are as tech savvy as I am, which is not great. So therefore, all of a sudden there's an issue, and that student has graduated, moved on. He has the passwords. He knows how that all worked. Like if they were, I would just want to make sure that it wasn't something that was becoming a box versus you having someone who sets it up in a professional capacity and Rob works with them, and you'd always have a fallback especially in these initial period of time of Rob being able to go in and address or make some kind of adjustments. So I just think that's important. I would have to defer to Rob and MCAB and their expertise, as far as whether, that's the best way to go. And unfortunately, I don't have like a contact in the IT area over at the high school, although, we certainly could reach out, and there's plenty of folks over there that, I chat with that I'm sure could get us somebody if MCAB or Rob thought that was a good person to reach out to, or you folks.
Great, and I apologize if I didn't mean to suggest that high school student would help design the webpage. That definitely would be not preferred for all the reasons that you mentioned. They go on and graduate, but I just merely as like help with any of the side parts. But you mentioned that club, the Black Culture Club too, that might be a helpful group.
I think so.
And yes, I think Darren could be a good person for that.
Yeah.
For the application for...
Just for, yeah,
for high school or college liaison type. Okay. So talking about programming, Juneteenth is coming up, and I know, Dana, you and Roy have talked about videoing. Any updates on that part of it?
Roy talked to Rob, and they were basically waiting for better weather to do filming, creating videos on site.
Next week.
Maybe as early as next week. I've also been hosting at the Highlands the Whitemarsh 250 meetings, and Roy has attended as well. And if we have, I don't know if we need, I'm assuming we would need township permission of like when we could actually have people on site to do like a group tour. It wouldn't have to be through all the buildings. It could be limited, where Roy would lead a tour as a part of the Whitemarsh 250 celebrations. We're creating a passport of sites, and Roy volunteered to, contribute to the purchase of the passports. And basically it's a pamphlet of sorts that every historical site that wants to be involved has their logo on there, and people could attend different tours or whatever. Some sites are doing colonial dancing or having a lecture series, things like that. And then when you attend, the pamphlet gets stamped. So if that's something that we can do and work with Roy on scheduling the timing of that, it could be sometime this summer.
Is that an all summer thing, or is it shoved into a
It's actually a 2-year thing, and it kicks off April 12th is the kickoff at St. Thomas's Church, where all the sites that are involved are going to be at St. Thomas's with tables of information about what we're going to be doing.
Do the sites collect a fee for the visits?
Yeah, so we're working on that right now. Basically, all the members that have been attending the meetings are contributing financially to the pamphlets, and then the individual sites do the fundraising for whatever they're hosting. And we're calling, I was in charge of calling 3 different historical societies to see like, hey, we're doing this, do you want to join and be a part of the pamphlet? And then we're, collecting money from all those sites to pay for it.
And then they do events? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they can do what they want on their own, whether it just be historic tours or sharing archive collections, or like I said, there's a fife and drum performance. There's someone doing a lecture at St. Thomas's, things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson's going to read the Declaration of Independence at Hope Lodge in August.
Nice. That's awesome.
The flax people are going to come and talk about the importance of linen and colonial art in May.
Yeah, Roy.
Yeah, just Roy Wilson, just to follow up on Dana. I guess my request is if a lot of these groups that are going to be involved have open houses at certain times anyway, so they just wouldn't be really doing anything more than they would already be doing. I guess in terms of Abolition Hall, it would be more something where it would be listed as a site as part of this consortium, and probably an asterisk or something saying, call for dates to be published maybe on the website or
Right.
whatever, because we're not obviously going to do anything, and nobody's going to be standing around there waiting to see if somebody drives in one day. So it'd be more like maybe there'd be a day
Scheduled
once a month or whatever that people would come if they're interested. That would be the presentation. But you guys in the township specifically would have to be in favor of all this. It's their property, it's their, I guess, liability, and their desire whether you want to be involved. You should, if you don't want to be involved, just say no, and
Right.
that's fine.
Yeah, that is what we were basically asking, so that Roy has permission, or that we have permission to move forward with that. And it could be a controlled thing, like it is at the Highlands. For me, it's only going to be set dates and times where we would be open in a set amount, 20 people. If that, we would cap it off, especially because of parking issues, things like that.
I mean, that sounds fantastic. Like, what can we do, the township do to help facilitate that?
First of all, you got to be in favor of it.
I make a recommendation for that.
All in favor?
But I guess there's some risk if people come on the property. I mean, that's your risk, it wouldn't be
We
mine.
have insurance. Yes?
We have insurance, yes. I would have to talk to the insurance company just to say, hey, we're having
Starting
tours
date.
on here.
Yeah, and if
given-
if we would need waivers or
Correct.
something like that ahead of time, we can do waivers. And then have a scheduled time on the township website. If there was a drop down specifically for Abolition Hall, it would list, Roy would give the dates and times that there would be tours.
Yeah.
I support it.
I support it. I mean, do we need to make that a formal, I mean,
I guess
Recommendation, right?
yeah.
somebody
Make a
would have to declare
recommendation.
what buildings are safe to go in or not go
Right,
into rooms.
exactly.
I mean, that would also
And
be
parking.
it's somebody else's decision.
I mean, even
I'll
if
go in
it
all the
was
rooms.
like a video, like if the weather, like how it's been awful, but you were, safe enough for you to be there, but not a whole group of people. I mean, Rob, I'm volunteering Rob, go in and do a video walkthrough live, where you're helping bring people from outside this area even to go
Well, that's
see.
the idea of the videos. This
Yeah.
is a special, this is separate from that.
Right, but the same kind of thing is, I think it's a great idea. So knowing that that is happening April 12th,
Yeah.
is there room to be able to have a table there? Should we, or is that too much
Yeah,
of
I
an
mean, Roy,
ask? Or can
No,
we help?
we're already planning, and he's been attending, and we already are planning it. We just wanted approval to actually do it.
Does that need to go to the Board of Supervisors?
It should, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the 250 project with Roy giving tours be part of the passport.
A second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Before I sit down, I have one other question. There's a student that is referred to me that wants to do some research on Martha. Martha Malsby Hovenden was a daughter of Thomas and Helen Hovenden. And she was the one that was the sculptor. She used the first floor of Abolition Hall, was her studio, same as I did. Back when it had a board floor, that's where she did stone carving. Anyway, that's Martha Malsby Hovenden. The student wants to do there's an art student at Monco, wants to do some research on Martha, because she's an artist, and Martha Hovenden is a pretty much unknown person. I said I'd work with her. My only question, why I'm bringing it up, is could I take her into the buildings, show her some of the small pieces that are still there that we left, and give her some lay of the land in terms of being able to talk about Martha being there. Be nice to go into the sites and just see what it looked like, at least
Is it safe?
spatially.
It's safe.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's going to have to either be there with us or let me in, or let me have a key or something. But you guys have to be in favor of this. There's another student coming on the property. Is there a risk to you?
I think that's a great idea, and
More
I think
interest,
it's
the better.
another opportunity to even have Rob record the kind of question answer that would happen between the two of you. I
If he has time. I don't know. If he has
Yeah,
time.
I mean, could be another project that could get edited by another university.
Like Tom, I mean, how would that happen? I mean, I don't have a key to the property. how would that access take place? Would it be scheduled at some time that
You would just
somebody would meet us?
contact
or
me, yeah, you would contact me and I would get you into the property.
Would I come and get a key? Would somebody come over and kind of walk us?
Probably have someone go over and open it and block it up when you're done.
Stay with us.
You'd hold your hand the whole time.
So what
It would
is
only
the
be kind of
outcome of that
uncomfortable.
student? Is she looking to do like a paper and
You must do a
presentation
blog.
about
I
that?
don't know what it-
Yeah, I mean, that
I'm
would
not
be
there.
great to
That's
like
awesome.
Yeah.
read what she's writing.
It's
Yeah.
good for her as an artist, as a sculptor herself. I don't know what her sculpture looks like. No, I mean, none. I'm the sculptor.
Yeah.
She is a painter. My wife's a painter. Her interest is more in Martha as a, unsung hero and, advancing women's art or whatever. I'm not sure. I haven't actually met her when I emailed, but she has interest in promoting, Martha's efforts, which is,
See,
I want to work with her.
that's such a personal story too about Martha. Like now it's taking something that has this big name, Abolition Hall, and you're putting in like the personal story. I think that's.
Martha actually is the bridge between a lot of this history, which is 1800s, Underground Railway, of course. Hovenden, he died in 1895, so that's still 1800s. Helen continued working, but you're talking early 1900s. Whereas Martha was a little more, she died in 1940, I think, or 41, I forget. So that's a little bit more, not contemporary, but moving the needle a little further down the line with what she was involved in, because she was the last person to live there. She lived alone after her mother died.
I have one proviso that I would ask that the student license her write-up on this so that we can include it in our materials, because I think sharing
Do
the
we need
history.
a waiver or some other acknowledgement that she would be open to having
Having
this
us
reviewed
write
and
it.
be part of?
Yeah, I would just ask her, say, hey, like, the township would like to also be able to publish what you write. Would you be okay with that? And because I think, like, this whole thing
Be
is,
included in the webpage.
yeah, we want to share,
I guess my impression is that she's going to do a blog, which would already be online.
Yeah.
So I guess
So we could have a link to
could
her
link to
blog.
it.
Okay,
That's what
that works.
That's what it seems to be, what she's trying to do.
Cool.
I don't know, but most blogs I've seen don't have a lot of pictures on them.
Happen, like permission for that?
Yeah, that's why I said licensing. like,
Permission to share?
a
everything?
license to use it and reproduce it.
I'll ask her about it. and get back.
Linking to a live blog, because you link to it, and then you don't know what they're.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
That's why
exactly right.
I said a license.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A license to reproduce it, and, we'll give her access, and she gives us what she writes so that we can share it with the community in a way that you're not sending a link to a page that one day is about Abolition Hall and the next day is about, I'm not even going to go there.
Anyway, I take all this as a yes.
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 I'll
Just contact me on that one.
Craig,
Yeah.
is there something
Thank you,
that we
Roy.
can ask the solicitor's office about this with permission and like what you're talking about? Is that something that Sean's office can weigh in
To
on?
get permission for the site?
For sharing
Waivers.
her information, the blog, I mean, us having a direct connect to her blog, I don't know is a good idea, but having,
No, we'd
Rather
want
see her
to have a
writing.
PDF copy
Yeah.
of it
Yeah,
that
right.
we could
Yeah,
then
that's
put
what we
up.
want, yeah.
yeah.
And it would be a license. Claire, when
Permission, something.
when people come on site in this state, I think of construction, and there's an inherent, there's like danger to it, right? Like there's no known hazards, but there's like certainly unknown hazards. Maybe a board is soft and you don't know about it, things like that. Do you have any sort of like short form that you've used in the past for when you're taking people to?
Actually, some of our colleagues work at, or I know people at Eastern State Penitentiary, and I think they have a form like that for going in areas of the facility, so that would probably be a good example.
Actually, I would say when I gave tours to the larger groups, lots of times they were elderly, so I was always a little concerned about it. I mean, a couple times had buses come. When an individual walked in, we just walked around and nothing was ever said. But when I knew a big group was coming, I always had them sign a waiver. In one case, it was too many people involved, and I wasn't clear who they all were, so I had the group leader sign a waiver on their behalf that anybody agreeing to get off the bus and come onto the property was doing so at their own risk. and that we weren't responsible for anything that happened. Of course, a lawyer will tell you, you're always responsible, but at least people are warned.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'd be fine with her.
Part of it's psychological, just getting their head into
The right frame.
the right frame that like, hey, you got to watch where you're walking and pay attention. And
How many cars can we park? And if we're going to start doing things, we don't have a designated parking spot.
Well, that's why talking to that property up here will
Okay,
help
but
when the weather's.
if that doesn't fly, how many, we want to bring people in so he can take them through on tours. They're going to pull in the driveway and park on the lawn like we
Yeah, it'd have to be
did.
small tours.
Then it's going to fly.
Yeah.
You've got this.
I got
You've got this.
Excuse me.
just something to think about.
First of all, Mr. Wilson, I think it's really commendable how gracious you are with your historical significance, knowledge, time, and willingness to do the tours, because I do believe that's the best, lowest hanging fruit to really garner a lot of excitement from the community as well and get people on the property in a controlled, safe way. So if this pleases the committee, once Mr. Wilson has his dates and times together, we can go and set those up in our registration system, and that will have the waivers all in there already as part of our current township waivers. And then we'll be able to sit there and put min-maxes on that. So we could say, let's say he's doing 4 tours or 6 tours or, whatever those dates happen to be spread out and those times, people could sign up. Mr. Wilson will be able to give us a call and we'd be able to say, yeah, you got these 6 people, and we can email you the list of who the people are. We could arrange working with him as far as access and the like, explain to folks in meeting access to the building, and also explain to folks, that the facility is currently not ADA accessible, but we're working towards that goal. And we look forward, to them coming and enjoying the facility. I think that that could all work very seamlessly and be a really positive thing. We just have to pick what number. I would think we really probably wouldn't want more than maybe 10 or 12 cars in there. That might even be tight.
That's about right, I think.
You think you get 10 cars in there?
We just do it for parties.
Small cars, like my Honda Fit.
It would have to be guided and assisted.
Right, yeah.
But
So
this is
just throwing that out, if that's something that pleases the committee and Mr. Wilson's good to work to have that. I think that's a good way for folks to register. They're going through the township. We'd be able to know what the numbers are. We'd also be able to have a history of who these people are that visited. We'd be able to add them and start a database for folks that were interested in Abolition Hall. So I think that could be a real positive and a good thing. So again, my thanks to Mr. Wilson, because he's really the energy that can make this a success.
Got my support.
Yep. Absolutely. Knowing that the other discussion topic is programming, which we're talking about, Juneteenth is coming up really fast as well. Township Day. Tom, would you be open to someone helping have like a little subcommittee to get into conversations about specifically those 2 events, that how we can connect about those?
As far as Township Day, if there's something that you folks want to have a table or whatever at Township Day, you just have to let me know ahead of time so that I'll block off and have a table and that kind of thing ready for you folks. Or if there's something you want to do, just let us know. That day in particular, as you know, there's a lot of balls up in the air. So happy to set up an area or, get you folks set up for Township Day. But that's, trickier as far as us being hands-on to help you folks because we only have so many hands that day.
Sure.
As far as Juneteenth goes, have the lecture set up and ready to rock. And we have a tentative time set up with the speaker for the lecture that day. At this point in time, if that's taking place in the formal Abolition Hall building area there, the issue again is just the limitation of parking. And I think, it can't be, safety's the concern, everyone understands, and we heard that earlier tonight. It can't just be, hey, anybody can show up. I do think it needs to be a program, and folks can sign up and register. And if then we need to cap it at a certain number, then it gets capped at a certain number, and maybe it's something that gets done again at a different time. But to me, the issue there, the big issue is parking, because it's kind of we know what the time frame was slated to be for Juneteenth. Folks can be in, they know what they're signing up for. They're going to show up at whatever time, a little before 12. They'd be there 12 to 1:30. If Mr. Wilson wanted to be on hand to answer any questions people might have about the grounds or the facility, that's always a good thing. And can, add a little value, but otherwise it's just determining the number and the location so that we can kind of, like we do our other programs, create the flyer and get it out and then start pumping the information out. But being a Friday program during the middle of the day, that would limit the number of folks, I think, already, which is not a bad thing given the constraints on, access at the site.
So, thank you, Tom. Would you and Deb consider connecting, just to kind of go through the details about what that lecture is and the time, and maybe we could even live stream it so that if there is a limited capacity for on-site parking, there will be limited access, that we could still have other people be involved, but kind of talk through those details. And I would recommend that we have a table at Township Day, even if it's to have the passports and the, sign up here and donate, and we can have these lovely people join us.
Bring the cutoffs?
Yes.
Well, my concern here, parking, there's 5 people out here. So if those 5 show up and we show up, there's nobody else can come to this lecture.
No, I'll pick you up.
No, you could not be more correct. And I understand that. And if that means, it needs to be moved to a different location that day, then then that's at the discretion of the board and the township manager.
I think you can talk about, you and Deb might be able to hash out those details a little bit more, because when we had the opening ceremony at Abolition Hall, we did have parking at the business across Butler, where people, the police were part of that to make sure that people could safely cross, but also, the Strawberry Festival at the Plymouth Meeting Friends happens, and people park and walk across the street, and the police are aware. So there are ways to navigate around the parking while we're figuring out the end game parking. But I think those details are beyond the scope of this meeting. I think we need to have a little more time to get through all of that.
If a neighbor provides us with parking, if they assist us in the short term with parking, they should get a shout out on the Abolition Hall. Thank you to the support of so-and-so.
So be it.
Because it's a temporary issue. Once the Hobb thing is up, right, we can close off the other thing and we can give them that assurance. Listen, once the main parking lot's built, we can close this off. this is a temporary thing. Your township appreciates it. We will give you a shout out for supporting Abolition Hall. That'll carry great, that'll press well.
What else?
We'll plow your snow in the wintertime.
You're laughing. Did not even say that out loud.
No, that's exactly what I did when I did it on German Pike, between a restaurant needed space and an eye doctor.
And that was the quid pro quo.
And a courthouse. So I was able to negotiate, but that was what it was, that person paid, the restaurant paid for the snow
It
plowing.
literally was. Oh my God, that's so funny you said that.
That's my point. What else are we going to give him? A handshake? Gee, you're a great guy, but, you know, if he's a bigot, what do we do? He's not going to want anything to do with it.
It's not going to happen.
But you got to give, what else can we give him besides you're a nice person?
There's two properties here that could be parking for anybody that's not familiar. There's the Germantown Pikes property, which is abuts Abolition Hall lawns, which is the one I was talking about before. The one that, as you're talking about, the big parking lot for the office complex right across the street.
Yep.
I mean, it's gigantic. You could put a whole,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, the only issue is you're crossing 3 lanes of traffic.
Yeah,
But it is sidewalk all the way down. It's really, it's much.
The other issue is that they're in business on a Friday afternoon too.
Is this Juneteenth, you mean?
Yeah.
That's Friday, yeah. That might be a problem.
So, but I am happy to talk to Mrs. Lukens and, see what, like we talked through that with her and the township manager. There's a significantly more logistics that go into if we're going to use Brandywine's parking lot and the amount of resources that will be needed in order to hold that event. So just I just don't want the expectation to be greater than the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I completely understand. And if it doesn't work to do that, then maybe consideration to having it, minimal registrations for on-site and then live stream it.
Or if, God willing, it's a big turnout, we can always talk about parking in the high school and renting a bus. SAG.
Yeah, having a
shuttle. That would be wonderful.
I'd also have to check with the gentleman providing the lecture to make sure he didn't have any proprietary issues with his lecture being live streamed, because this one is something he does as well. I like to think he would be okay with it, but again, I've run into it where we've had entertainment at times that have been like, sure, no problem, and we've had other ones that went, no, you can't film us and hang that somewhere.
Thanks for checking on that, Tom. And thank you, Deb. That will help.
My last thing, as I offer this when I go talk to the parking, can we insure the parking lot?
We can additionally insure them.
Yes?
We can add them as an additional insured.
Because that's obviously.
We would have to, actually.
We'd have to.
Yeah, we did that before, and we had to have a contract signed to do it with Brandywine, and it takes time.
Okay.
In addition to the parking, and Renee, you can correct me on this, there's a limit on the buildings, too. I don't think we want a group of more than, is it 49, or is that it, Renee?
She's reading a book.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up, yeah. So I think that would be the maximum practical limit for
49.
other safety issues, yeah.
Okay.
Who is the lecturer and what is the topic for Juneteenth?
That's
The
Tom.
lecture is Jim Seagrave Daly, and it's a 90-minute lecture on one of the two topics of roles of slavery and the American Indians in the American Revolution, or
That's the one he's going to do.
The Revolution?
Okay.
Nice.
Revolution. The roles of slaves and American Indians played in the American Revolution.
That's cool.
I hope he'll let us film that, because that sounds really interesting for people who can't make it. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and maybe to allay his concerns, not live stream it. I think having editing makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Just record it, maybe.
Is he going to do it in Abolition Hall upstairs? Is that the idea?
That's the plan at this point, yes.
That's really cool.
Come up the deck. So it's going to be published as unaccessible.
Correct. Yeah, that's what we'll have to do. Yeah.
We could get a davit and a pulley. I'm just thinking,
We could.
What's authentic?
Okay, well, we tackled a lot tonight, so thank you for everybody. Any other public comments?
How do you guys think we're doing?
It's a lot.
It's tough. I think this is a tough project for everyone who is vested in it, and we appreciate you guys showing up every week. You know, Roy, you're always going to have my support when you want to do stuff there. You're an ambassador for it, and I know that this has probably not been the easiest thing for a lot of the people in the audience, but we appreciate your support. We hope that we're doing a job that makes you feel like you're an included part of this process, because we think you are. So.
I agree.
I think there are more people who would like to be involved and included, and I would suggest that if at all possible, the agenda for the meeting be posted prior to the Friday. It's been coming out Friday afternoons before the Monday.
That's pretty similar to all the other meetings, isn't it, though?
Most of the committees and commissions post their agendas about a week ahead of time, typically. So that's my one suggestion.
Okay.
Doing the best we can, so, yep, trying to move forward best we can. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. As far as the next...
Can I just...
Go ahead, Jason.
Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank everybody and thank Tom and Craig and the committee and Roy and everybody who's been so active and engaged in this process. Ed referenced the grant agreement earlier, and I just want to remind everyone, although I know that you already know this, the education piece for the Karabots family is and has always been focused on disadvantaged youth. And I just want to make sure that going forward with whatever programming we do, that we don't lose sight of that. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, JC. So before we close, the next meeting date, we've been going every other month, but I have a little bit of a concern knowing that Juneteenth is coming so fast that maybe it would be good to meet before May. So maybe, Craig, I don't know what the availability is for Monday nights, and everybody's Easter is...
Monday nights are out for me.
Are there other nights that are open for the...
Plus the ale house is closed on Mondays.
I would
Tuesday
be...
the 7th is Shade Tree Commission in the Township Building. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, it's also Park and Rec Board that night.
Okay, so that's out.
Yeah, the 8th is zoning hearing board. I have it up here now. The 9th is Board of Supervisors. 13th looks like it is a possibility.
Is that a Monday?
The Monday.
I have the Art Center that night, if I need to be there.
How about the 14th?
14th is Planning Commission. 15th is Whitemarsh Authority. They don't meet here. We can do the 15th. It's a Wednesday. 23rd, Thursday.
I'll be back.
I can do that.
That works.
That works. That way you guys don't have to rush out of your SATs early. You can just come back on time.
That got me big chuckle.
I hit a funny stone.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.